On Tuesday, April 9th, human rights activist Kerry Kennedy spoke to students on the topics of social justice, violence, gun control, and her father, Robert F. Kennedy. The following video contains highlights of the interview conducted by social studies teacher David Rapaport.
There are several issues I'd like to touch on in the short time that we have together. First of all, thank you so much for this interview. And these issues are gun violence, civil rights, and the role that you played in a particular moment in time that completely changed the lives of millions of people, including me. Well, firstly, I believe it takes great courage on your part to speak out on the many issues you embrace, but particularly on the issue of gun violence, because of the enormous personal loss you and your family faced when your father was killed. I wanted to ask you, what are the tactics you advocate to reduce gun violence?
On gun violence, I guess, my first memories, and some of my earlier memories are of when my uncle, President Kennedy, was killed, and my father's reaction to that. And he banned all the guns from our house. And so much of those next 5 years. So I was 4 when my uncle was killed, and I was almost 9 when my father was killed. But the idea of guns, the thought of guns, were so present in our household as something that had caused so much harm and pain for our family. And then, of course, when Martin Luther King was also killed, it was a horrible period for us and for our country as we struggled with the civil rights movement and what was going to happen as a result of his death, and then the riots that were breaking out all across our country in the big cities. So for me, the trying to stop gun violence came quite naturally. Both as a child and then as an adult. It is difficult, as you're saying, because it's a source of enormous pain. This is the worst moment of my life, and one that has marked my life, and that is everyone in our family, in addition to our country and people around the world. So it's not a subject that I like to talk about or dwell on and think about, but at a certain point when you just see so much pain, you kind of have to act and say that's enough. So what can we do? One thing all of us can do is try and understand one another, I think, a little bit better. And understand that 50% of the households in the United States of America own a gun. So for those of us who don't own guns, it's important to understand that other people do, and you're responsible about it. And that's a part of what it means to be an American for so very many people. And I think we have to understand that as a starting place.
It's been more than 100 days since the school shooting in Connecticut seemingly changed the tone of the debate. A lot of opponents to any form of discussion on the problem of gun violence seem to agree that enough is enough, as you put it. But would you agree that a political calculation is being made to change this momentum?
Absolutely. I think the survival of the NRA is all about making people be fearful and trying to get them to stop any kind of control of any guns or ammunition or armaments of every type. So that is what they've campaigned on, and their membership has swelled since the shooting in Connecticut, which happened 20 minutes from my home here, where I'm speaking to you from. And so I think that is going on, and then I think there's a real political calculation in Washington as to what is viable, what even Democrats who want to put on as many controls as possible have to understand that the reality is that it will not pass the House. No legislation will pass the House, and especially the Tea Party, if it includes certain controls. So that's why you see Harry making the compromise on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, and taking that out of the legislation and trying to pass legislation which has the best chance of passing, which is legislation which will have mandatory background checks.